Your ownership is paused for now. Through the crowd of workers, James saw caterers bringing in champagne and fancy food for an exclusive HOA gala. A banner read Premium Member Experience. Workers were breaking branches off his oak tree to set up lights, and one spilled ice across his garden path. When James tried to stop them, the officers blocked him. "Final warning, sir. Go inside, or we'll take action," they said. James saw he couldn't win this fight right now. "This isn't over," he warned Charles. Charles waved him off. "We've heard that before. Don't make this hard, James." James went inside, but his prosecutor instincts kicked in. He started documenting everything, taking photos, recording conversations through his window, and noting every person at the party. "This isn't a neighborhood event," he muttered, watching the guests. They weren't locals, they were rich people from out of state, arriving in fancy cars. James opened his laptop and checked county property records. What he found was alarming. For homes in Willow Creek estates had sold in the past year, all 15 to 20% below market value, all owned by people who had fought the HOA. Each was bought by shell companies tied to Charles Bennett's real estate group. "This is a pattern," James said, making a timeline of sales and disputes. He also checked the HOA's financial records. Despite collecting $750 from 120 homes each year, the budget for community improvements had shrunk, while a special projects fund had grown with no clear explanation. James sent an email to a trusted colleague at his old office, asking for financial background checks on Charles and Emily. Using his federal access, he searched for more information on the board members. Charles's real estate company was struggling, but his personal wealth was growing. Emily had worked for a company once investigated for fraud. The HOA's lawyer also worked for Charles's investment group, a clear conflict of interest. James dug deeper and found that the HOA was charging wealthy non-residents $500 a year for premium social memberships that gave them access to exclusive venues, the backyards of homeowners like James. They were selling access to private property they didn't own, making over $250,000 a year. The money went to an account controlled by Charles, Emily, and the board treasurer, Stephen Grant, who was also Charles's accountant. Large withdrawals matched the dates of real estate purchases, showing the money was being used for private investments. James found old HOA emails through public records. One email from Charles to Emily said, "Carter's absence is the perfect time. His property has the best view in Willow Creek, perfect for our summer gala. Once we set the precedent, he'll sell like the others." Another email showed their plan: target properties with great views or unique features, especially owners who travel a lot or elderly residents who can't fight back. Through his window, James watched Charles showing off his oak tree, garden paths, and koi pond to guests, acting like they were his own. "We'll add a permanent pavilion next month," Charles told a couple, pointing to James's reading spot. "Perfect for sunset events." James realized they planned to keep using his property forever. More research showed Charles's group had applied for commercial zoning permits for land near James's property. Their long-term goal was to turn the neighborhood into a resort-like area, using private homes as attractions. "This isn't just about parties," James said. "They're building a business inside a residential area, using the HOA as a cover." He found that the HOA had changed its rules 27 times in 3 years, always during meetings when targeted homeowners were away. James identified 3 other homeowners who sold at a loss after constant harassment, daily citations, water shutoffs, and towed cars. The Millers got 31 citations in 1 month for things like too many bird feeders, after refusing to let the HOA use their lakefront yard. Elderly resident Clara Thompson sold after daily notices about her grandkids' basketball hoop. Each property was bought by Charles's companies, fixed up, and sold for a 30 to 40% profit. The pattern was clear: target desirable homes, harass owners, force them to sell, and profit. James found his own name on a list called Acquisition Targets Q3, marked as a Priority Alpha Premium View asset. The timeline said they'd acquire his property in 60 to 90 days. Their plan was to isolate him, give him minor violations, use his property, and cut off services like water or mail until he gave up. James recognized this from his work. It was like a racketeering scheme, using HOA rules to hide illegal actions. They've done this before, he thought. But they've never targeted a federal prosecutor who knows racketeering. James reached out to other victims, starting with Margaret. Over coffee at a diner, she shared that her sister, Lillian, was forced out of her home. They used Lillian's garden for their wine tastings, Margaret said, handing James a folder of evidence. When she complained, they gave her violations for everything: her mailbox, her flowers, even her bird bath. She sold for $50,000 less than her home was worth just to get away. James met with the Millers, who lost $70,000 on their sale, Henry Brooks, who faced daily parking tickets, and Sophia Rivera, who was fighting citations for her disabled son's therapy equipment. They target anyone who doesn't fit their perfect community image, Sophia said during a secret meeting at James's house, especially older residents who were here before Charles took over 5 years ago. A former board member, Edward Harris, explained, "I quit when I saw what was happening. Charles and Emily aren't just running an HOA, they're running a real estate scam. They use HOA rules to push out owners, then flip the properties. The parties are showcases for investors. They sell access to homes without the owner's permission." Together, they formed a group of current and former residents who'd been bullied. Each brought evidence, citations, recordings, emails, and more. Instead of just complaining, James used his expertise to build a RICO case, identifying crimes like racketeering, mail fraud, wire fraud, and civil rights violations. "They're not just abusing HOA powers," James told the group. "They're running a criminal operation. RICO laws were made for this, a pattern of crimes by a group affecting multiple states. But we need solid proof of their plan." James gathered sworn statements from 27 residents, showing the pattern of harassment and forced sales. He worked with FBI friends who confirmed the scheme crossed state lines, making it a federal case. "This is like a protection racket," FBI agent Laura Kim said. "Instead of pay us or we hurt your business, it's sell to us or we make your life miserable." James created a timeline of board meetings, rule changes, harassment, and property sales over 5 years. To get the final proof, he needed Charles and the board to admit their plan openly. The gala in his backyard was the perfect chance. The next evening, James set up legal surveillance equipment in his house, aimed at his backyard. As the party started, he watched wealthy non-residents enjoying his property while Charles networked with them. James called 2 trusted FBI friends, who arrived posing as caterers with hidden recorders. They captured Charles saying to an investor near James's oak tree, "We control the rules as board members. We make it impossible for owners to follow them." Emily told another group, "This 3-acre property will be ours soon. Most owners sell rather than fight. We buy at 15 to 20% below market and make 30 to 40% profit in 6 months." When an investor asked, "What if they resist?" Emily replied, "That doesn't last long. We isolate them, fine them daily, then cut off things like water or mail. They break fast." Charles was recorded saying, "We've perfected this over 5 years. We target valuable properties, make life unbearable, then buy cheap through separate companies. The HOA makes it look legal." All this happened on James's property without his permission, perfect evidence of trespassing and conspiracy. As the party peaked, James saw Charles collecting cash from non-residents for membership renewals. Charles, Emily, and Stephen stepped aside, talking quietly while pointing at James's house. James read their lips through his camera. "Once Carter sells, we'll control the whole North Ridge." James had enough. He texted his FBI friends and the group waiting nearby. As Charles toasted to another successful acquisition, James stepped out with 2 FBI agents showing their badges. "Federal agents. Everyone stay where you are," the lead agent shouted. Guests froze in confusion, and Charles's face turned pale. James approached with federal warrants. "Charles Bennett, Emily Watson, and Stephen Grant, you're under arrest for conspiracy, mail fraud, wire fraud, and racketeering under the RICO Act. "This is ridiculous," Charles yelled, still holding his champagne. "We're an HOA, not criminals." "You're both," James said calmly. "And we have it all recorded, including your confessions tonight." Emily tried to delete something on her tablet, but an agent took it. "That's evidence," the agent said as the board members were handcuffed. James spoke to the stunned guests. "This wasn't a community event. You've been funding a criminal scheme to force homeowners out of their properties for profit." The group recorded everything, Charles and his team being led away in handcuffs past the HOA exclusive party sign. "You have no idea who you've been dealing with," James said to Charles quietly. "I've spent my career putting people like you in prison." Charles finally realized his mistake, targeting a federal prosecutor who specialized in schemes like his. The arrests led to a bigger investigation. Federal agents searched Charles's real estate office and the homes of 7 board members, finding documents that showed the scheme went beyond Willow Creek Estates. They uncovered similar operations in 12 other HOAs across 3 states, all tied to Charles's investment group. The parties were showcases for investors in their property flipping scam, with guests unknowingly supporting organized property theft. Financial records showed $4.2 million in profits from forced sales over 5 years, affecting over 60 families, mostly retirees who lost their savings. They targeted older homeowners, an FBI agent said, reviewing victim profiles. People who couldn't fight back. James worked with investigators, using his experience as both a prosecutor and a victim to build a strong case. 6 months later, he sat in the federal courthouse as the verdicts were read. Charles Bennett was found guilty on 17 counts, Emily Watson on 12 counts, and 5 other board members on various charges. Sentences ranged from 5 to 15 years in prison, with Charles getting the maximum. The court also ordered full restitution, money to every homeowner who sold under pressure, plus extra damages. Elderly residents like Lillian got their homes back or financial compensation to secure their retirement. Federal marshals seized Charles's properties and assets, auctioning them to pay the victims. The shell companies were shut down, and every stolen property was returned when possible. 1 year later, James hosted a real community party in his backyard, this time by choice. Neighbors who once lived in fear now laughed and talked freely. Former residents who'd lost their homes returned, their properties restored through the restitution program. Margaret Evans raised a glass to James. To James, who showed us that fighting bullies isn't just about protecting yourself, it's about protecting everyone. James smiled, looking at his oak tree, garden, and koi pond, now peaceful again. His property and his community were truly his own at last.